for cultivating progress across the South, for working to unconditionally improve the lives of all, and for the bold underwriting of every Gravy podcast. SFA thanks our visionary Louisville, Kentucky friends, Pam and Brooke Smith.
Just a 5-minute drive from Graceland and a straight shot down the King's Own Boulevard is a West African restaurant called Bala's Bistro, run by its eponym, Bala Tounkara, and his cousin, Mady Magassa. West African food is probably not what leaps to mind when non-Memphians think about Memphis. To tourists, Memphis is all Beale Street, the Bass Pro Shop, and barbecue, barbecue, barbecue. But the real Memphis is a haven for Black culture and Black Southern food. And as newer immigrants have made their homes in the city and found prosperity within its limits, the defining characteristics of both the city and the food scene are changing. In this episode of Gravy, reporters Joshua Carlucci and Marie Cascione take us to Bala's, a restaurant reintroducing Black Southern food to its West African roots. It's the kind of place where you can eat, make a new friend, and get a history lesson all at once. You're listening to Gravy.
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 A production of the Southern Foodways Alliance, Gravy tells the stories of the changing American South. I'm your host, Melissa Hall. Joshua and Marie take us to Bala's.
Walking into Bala's Bistro is sensory overload in the best way possible. The walls and tables are draped with intricately patterned, hand-printed fabrics. Sunlight is pouring through the windows, and from the sizzling, bustling kitchen streams a warm wall of dense, earthy spices. In the center of the room is a glass display of gleaming trays brimming with food. There's jammy chicken yassa, braised with lemon, onions, and Dijon mustard, and silky mafe, a classic Malian stew made from creamy peanut butter. There's also spicy braised oxtail, perfectly roasted jerk chicken, and aromatic rices, always 2 of them. Jollof from Ghana, and the Malian zaman. All fresh, all homemade. And, invariably, at the center of it all, is Bala Tounkara, as much a teacher as he is the chef here.
So, these rice here are almost the same. This is the jollof rice. Since it's yellow.
We arrive at Bala's Bistro on a somewhat unconventional day. For the first time in probably the restaurant's history, Bala isn't cooking. Not because he doesn't want to, but because Bala is literally so hands-on that he ripped 2 tendons in them while hanging up some decorations a few weeks before. That was at his new restaurant, Monday DB, a new barbecue spot across town, but more on that later. Luckily, Bala's Bistro is a family affair.
That's my cousin Mady over there.
And Bala's cousin, Mady Magassa, is there to pick up the slack, like he has been from the beginning. The restaurant might be eponymous with the man himself, but Mady and Bala agree that there'd be no bistro at all without the 2 of them. They're sort of the perfect pair. Mady's calm, practical tenacity and Bala's more visionary, spirited drive, working in tandem to bring out their shared dream, this restaurant. A space where people from West Africa, Memphis, and everywhere in between can feel at home and do some real good eating. Their dream was born, of all places, on a Greyhound bus, hurtling through the Mississippi Delta. It was the winter of 2001 when Bala and Mady first landed in New York from their home in the landlocked country of Mali. The cousins were looking for a new life and opportunities better than the ones they'd been afforded back home. You know, the whole American dream thing. But New York was grieving trauma beyond comprehension. Xenophobia was on the rise, and jobs were hard to come by. Overall, it was a pretty inhospitable place for 2 newly arrived young men to find their feet. Here's Bala.
I don't want to live anywhere where I can't even see no ground, no nothing.
So, they left. Well, ever practical Mady left first, choosing Memphis because he had family there. In those days, the West African community in Memphis was nowhere near what it is now, But there was a small enclave forming in Whitehaven, a black, middle-class neighborhood known mostly as the home of Graceland. And more importantly, Mady says, conveniently close to the casinos in and around Tunica, Mississippi, not far past the state line.
All African people in Memphis, it's not a lot at the time, but all African people in Memphis, everybody work in the casino. You know, everybody work in the casino. You don't see nobody work something else in the casino. All the family you come, the first thing they will do, go to the casino.
At the casino, the West African community took care of one another, showing new arrivals the ropes, translating for them, sometimes between as many as 4 dialects, and helping them settle in. Pretty soon, Bala decided to take the Greyhound bus down to visit. For hours and hours, he looked out the window, watching the landscape change.
As soon as we left, I think Philadelphia and then getting to Virginia, that's when we started saying, we was like, oh my God, can you believe there's some cow over there, there's some horses over there, things like that. And then when we got closer to Memphis, and then it started being like, I'm like, wow, this is exactly what I want to live.
Bala grew up on a farm. He was used to wide open spaces, growing his own food. So it made sense that the Delta felt a little more like home.
I automatically kind of fell in love with the place.
So he decided to stay. When it came to entry-level casino jobs, there were basically 2 options: housekeeping or kitchen work. They both chose to cook, despite the fact that in Mali, that kind of thing was pretty rare for men.
So we don't cook, but we have mom, auntie, grandma, things like that do most cooking.
Mady says the same.
Like in my country, man, you don't go past the kitchen. You're a man, you don't go past the kitchen. That's a female job for the cooking.
But as it turns out, they were both naturals.
When my first job was employee, a dining room area, just picking up food, drop it on the line, and people just picking up the food, and then I just replace it and then continuously throughout the day. I just fell in love with food.
So I started about 1 years in the breakfast, and I'm pretty good. And the chef said, wow, I can't believe that 1 week you do all. I said, I don't know, I was so scared.
Bala rose the ranks at the casinos, mentored by 2 well-known local chefs, Jimmy Gentry and Kelly English.
That's when I met some of the greatest people that I ever met, and some of the people that actually inspired me, pushed me to be more and then also do more. Because back then, I wasn't educated.
At the same time, Mady was cutting his teeth in restaurants all over Memphis, mastering American, Mexican, and Chinese dishes. But around 2017, after over 15 years in the kitchen, Mady realized that though he was without a doubt a great cook, he had no idea how to make food from home. The food that flavored his earliest memories.
One is peanut butter stew. Okay. And number 2 it could be igusi. Number 3 is lamb sakasaka. And then I started why and all the food we know how to make, but African food, we're from Africa, we don't know how to make African food. That's kind of, terrible for me.
So Mady went right to the source. He called in his wife, and his friends' wives, and aunts, and mothers. Women from Mali, Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, all over West Africa.
All my family, the African community here, the women, everybody come and help me.
They all stepped up and stepped in. With the skilled eyes of a trained chef, he watched African women cooking in kitchens all over Whitehaven, learning their techniques, noting their recipes, and making them his own. See, Mady's plan was to open a booth at an African cultural festival downtown, frequented mostly by non-African Memphians. And
I know what kind of food American people like, and I know what kind of food, they don't like.
So he tweaked things, only slightly, for the American palate. Usually that meant toning down the spice, considerably. If you ask Bala,
our food is super spicy, very, very spicy. And I tell you, if you go to any African house to eat with them, always ask where is the pepper. Because the soup itself, the food itself is spicy, but there is a pepper hiding in there.
The food was a big hit at the festival. So Mady went back the next year with Bala as his partner, and it was an even bigger hit. At this point, Bala and Mady had been in Memphis for close to 20 years, and over that period, they'd watched the West African community in Whitehaven blossom. Today, 21% of Black Americans are either immigrants themselves or children of immigrants. The vast majority of Black immigrants in America live in the South, and Tennessee is one of the fastest growing states for this community. Where the Nigerians, Ivorians, Senegalese, and Malians living in Whitehaven once had to rely on just a few friends to bring staples like palm oil down from New York, there are now thriving businesses for West Africans by West Africans. Grocers, clothing shops, and, of course, restaurants. But there wasn't really a sit-down restaurant that occupied the same niche that Bala and Mady had during their festival run. So, encouraged by their success, they decided to open a restaurant and bring these new recipes, lovingly reimagined from those of their friends and family, to a much wider audience.
After the break, you'll learn how Bala and Mady opened a restaurant and then another. But first,
Maker's Mark bourbon is aged to taste in Loretto, Kentucky. The Samuels family uses locally grown, soft red winter wheat and sources water from a lake on the distillery's campus. Every Maker's Mark label is printed and die-cut by hand on an antique press, and each bottle is hand-dipped in their signature red wax. All the details matter when distilling quality bourbon. Since Maker's Mark sold its first case of bourbon to the Keeneland Racecourse in Lexington, they have perfected the craft of distilling American whiskey. For their dedication to making great bourbon and for their support of the Southern Foodways Alliance, we thank them. Maker's Mark crafts their bourbon carefully. Please enjoy it that way.
Bala and Mady dreamed of weaving West African food into the culinary fabric of Memphis. But Bala will be the first to tell you they were never really all that separate in the first place.
We are all connected from the people who came over here through slavery, which they still have a deep root of how we cook.
The traditional foods of the African continent were largely variants of soupy stews or grilled or fried meat with an accompanying starch. In the New World, enslaved peoples worked with the ingredients and equipment they had access to in order to make something analogous to what they'd cooked back home. You can see echoes of that in today's African-American cooking. Collard greens taste a lot like saga saga, Congolese braised spinach and cassava leaves. And Southern cornbread has ties to kinke, a fermented Ghanaian corn dough. The menu at Bala's Bistro is meant to honor those links, bringing together the flavors of African-American soul food and West African food. Each dish strives to strike a balance between authentic and accessible, and is sort of a collaborative effort. Recipes are formed and reformed in response to input from the community.
The reason why people don't like African food, the reason why people say this, the reason why people say that, I listen to all of that.
Over time, they've made subtle changes, like swapping out traditionally rougher, more bitter herbs for spinach, or using sweetened peanut butter in place of unsweetened in the mafe. And also some more drastic ones.
We started realizing people coming in and ask, oh man, do you have this mafe vegan? Do you have this lamb sarasara vegan? Do you have vegan okra? Things like that. And then because we start talking, we're like, you know what? Yes, we can do something like that.
Even still, Bala and Mady know that West African food might seem a little out there for first-time customers, which is why they decided to display their dishes in a sort of pseudo-buffet, allowing customers to see and even taste the food before they order it. And you'll usually find Bala posted next to the display case, pointing out different dishes, explaining their origins, and recommending combinations.
I like to mix my stuff. And mafe, the peanut butter stew, that's my favorite, my most favorite.
Take the divisive fufu, a starchy, sticky paste made from yams, plantains, or cassava. That's a staple of West African cuisine. It went viral on TikTok in 2021 all over the US when people started recording their reactions to eating it for the first time. Some of which went a little like this.
It's different.
You know, so when people try fufu by themselves, oh, no way. What kind of food this is? I will never try it. Because number one is, the only thing that is in there is water. That's it. You don't add anything, no salt, no butter, no nothing.
But when dipped in something like a goosey, a soup rich with melty, fatty beef and studded with melon seeds, fufu's bitter, starchy sharpness becomes a perfect companion. So when people came in to film a challenge of their own, Bala let them. And then he showed them how fufu should be eaten.
Actually got so many people who did the challenge keep coming back and buying it.
I'm ordering the fufu and the goosey soup.
We visited Bala's one weekday during the lunch rush. Before the doors were even unlocked for the day, customers were milling about on the patio and peering in the windows. And from then on, it was a steady stream. Towards the end of the lunch rush, we saw a pair of customers standing shoulder to shoulder, gazing into the display case and chatting about what to order. So we asked them what they were leaning towards.
Magassa chicken and the jerk chicken. And I ordered yesterday, so I'm just adding to my menu for what's left over from yesterday. So
Are you having a party, or is it just for
it's just for me.
Yeah. She says she comes here a lot.
And what about you?
Oh, I haven't decided yet. I kind of want a little bit of everything.
We kind of assumed they were friends, or at least coworkers, since we interrupted them a full 5 minutes into their deliberations.
Did you guys come here together, or did you just...
Oh, no.
You just met?
They met in mine.
It's easy to see that Bala's makes a fan out of just about anyone who walks through their door. Those who share their heritage, and those who don't.
Have a good one. Enjoy your lunch. Thank you.
Thank you.
Before I used to be shy. Before I used to be kind of embarrassed telling people, yeah, I eat peanut butter stew with lamb, with chicken, with this, with that. We have to start with us, with ourselves. Don't be ashamed of what you, no matter how people criticizing you, but try to get them to understand why you eat this and why you eat that. And then everybody else eat all the different things. There's nothing wrong with it because that's your culture. Don't be ashamed of it.
In March 2024, Bala opened up Mady DB, West African Barbecue Grill, in Memphis's Hickory Hill neighborhood. The new project is Bala's way of doubling down on his idea of the shared food culture between Memphis and West Africa, a bet on the spectrum of what Black Southern food can be.
It's going to be almost like when you walk in Africa, in Mali, in the capital, in different area, you will see at nighttime, when you see nightlife, people actually outside barbecuing, just chopping up and stuff like that.
The word Mande, from the language family of the same name, refers to the collective people of the West African Empire. And as for DB,
when you're traveling from this village to that village, you get in the train. Every stop, when people are getting out, people are getting in, selling you like the DBs. The DBs are mainly meaning grill or barbecue. And then almost like they will have like a beef on the steak or chicken on the steak or...
Bala wanted to retrofit the tastes and smells of the DB stalls in Mali into the tried and true framework of American barbecue.
One of the things that I'm trying to do there is mixing the West African barbecue style with the Memphis barbecue style.
There's rotisserie chicken, turkey legs, even a brisket sandwich with a tangy Memphis-style barbecue sauce. But there are a few things noticeably different from the local norm.
But we will not do no coleslaw on top of it. No. No way. No. No coleslaw at all. No coleslaw. No, none of that. It might be maybe a salted cabbage or something like that, but no coleslaw at all.
And while Memphis-style barbecue is often synonymous with ribs, you won't find pork on the menu here. Bala and his family are Muslim. Still, the nuances, dry spice rubs, and cooking with fire, they're all there in plain sight, lingering like smoke between past and present. Whether from Africa, from Whitehaven, from Memphis, or from anywhere else in the world, Bala wants to parse together the continuity of food and its conversation, its roots and its future, over the tables he serves his guests at day after day.
I want this restaurant and anything that we do in the future to be for people who are like open-minded. for people who are looking for something different, for people who are used to eating West African food, and then also seeing develop, changing for the future, but also remaining at the core what we do.
Because food, as Bala sees it, is the most important conversation people can have. It's a language we all have in common, no matter how far we travel to get to one another's tables.
When I go to your house, you come to my house, if you have a background, even if you don't have a background of an African descent or a European descent, when you see what they're cooking and then what we cook, you can basically have a conversation just from that food, and then all of a sudden we become a very good relative, a very good friendship.
This episode was reported and produced by Joshua Carlucci and Marie Cascione. Joshua is a food writer who splits his time between Memphis and New York, where journalist and anthropologist Marie is based. They're old friends, but this is their first professional project together, if you don't count the hundreds of hours of brainstorming over good food. And that one time, Marie forced Josh to go on a foraging walk in Brooklyn's Prospect Park for, quote, research, end quote. We thank Wendell Patrick for Gravy's theme music. We also owe a huge thank you to Clay Jones and Broadcast Studios in Oxford, Mississippi for recording and mixing Gravy. Managing editor for Gravy and all other SFA media is Sarah Camp Milam. Olivia Terenzio is our podcast editor. Fact-checking comes courtesy of Heather Cole. Mary Beth Lassiter is our publisher. Visit us at southernfoodways.org to sign up for our weekly newsletter and take a deep dive into all of our work. While you're there, become a member or make a donation. Your dollars fund our work and help us make more Gravy. Excited to lap up another episode? Tell a friend or pass the gravy boat. There's plenty to go around.